right, so sound familiar? Age of Realpolitik, we're going to see different examples, okay? In France, we're going to see Napoleon III. In Italy, we're going to see Cavour. In Germany, we're going to see Bismarck, okay? So, before they established the Second Empire, you had to have the Republic, which comes before that. So this is right after the revolutions of 1848. And according to the Constitution, they have a unicameral legislature, okay? So what is the difference between uni and bi?
One and two.
Correct. 1 and 2. Okay, so the National Assembly is in power right now, and how their government looks like is that they have a strong executive power, and who is at the head? It's not an emperor.
President.
Yes, President Louis Napoleon. And who did he beat? Do you remember? Louis Philippe was not beaten in the election. He was beaten by the general guy. Okay, he was beaten by no, not literally. Oh, it didn't work. Yes, the general lost in a landslide to Louis Napoleon, and so he won by far, elected. And how do they have their election process now? It's what? It's universal, right? What does that mean? Yes. Okay, so this is going to actually be a significant thing because France at this point is the only European country that has universal male suffrage. Okay, let's go France. So the president is seen as a symbol of stability and greatness because why? They elect him, right? And they believe in him, and so he embodies this. And he is then trying to bring a lot of conservative policies. He is opposed to socialism and radicalism, and so he's going to start instituting different types of laws, which we'll get to. So the classes, which are the conservative classes of society that we would say like his policies? Nobles, what else? What other social classes? Merchants, no, they're more open, liberal, free market. The clergy, good. The church, okay. Property owners, okay, and some people say military leaders. I don't know. Okay, so many voters were swayed by kind of like his association with his uncle, right? Who's his uncle? Okay. So being Napoleon Bonaparte, he has this name, I don't know, you see that name Napoleon, and you just believe that greatness is going to come through this man. Okay. So with the support of conservatives, he's going to make a lot of different concessions. The first one is going to be the Fallot laws. This is where he's going to return control of education to the church. So the Catholic Church is going to be given this responsibility of handling the children. And in return, okay, the government is going to gain support from the Catholic Church. What this means is then the Legislative Assembly is not going to be as influential in the education process, and he's not going to rely upon them. He's going to kind of take more power for himself in that way. He's going to support policies that are favorable to the army, and we're going to see how that plays out in some of the wars. Okay, and the power of voting begins to lose its uniqueness. I don't know. Yeah, value. It loses value. And so he's going to start cracking down on the democratic and socialist movements that are going on in France, jailing them, putting their leaders, either exiling them, putting them in prison, or even some labor unions and those leaders in there, get rid of that too. Okay. So how does the Legislative Assembly react? How would you say they feel about this? upset, just pouty face, right? What are they actually going to do? What can they do? Okay. Well, one thing that they agreed to is that they're not going to give him money. Does this kind of make sense? It's kind of a pattern from before, right? They're not going to offer payment to his personal debt. And also, they do not grant him a second presidential term. Like, don't even try running because you can't. Okay. And so what ends up happening is the Legislative Assembly is going to be overthrown. So a coup d'etat will come. And this is where he will establish himself as emperor of the Second Empire. Okay, so he is now Emperor Napoleon III, and in December 1851 is when he has the coup d'etat, and the next year, 1852, is when he becomes emperor. He is going to restore universal suffrage, and so it's really a back and forth thing. It's really, he's being influenced by those that are in power, and once he has power, he begins trying to stay in power, of course. And so 92% of the people in 1852 are going to be allowed to vote. What happens to the other 8%? I don't know. They're maybe in jail or something. I don't know. 92% can vote, and they elect that he can be in power for 10 years. Okay. One thing that Napoleon did, his uncle did, was that he went through the process of a plebiscite. You guys remember this? Okay, so you allow the general public, okay, to then dictate what's going to happen. Of course, you ask them kind of with a biased point of view. That way, they kind of just like answer your question the way that you want it to. But this is how he basically was able to keep himself in power because everyone wanted him to stay in power. So in 1853, we're going to see 97% of the voters agreed to make him emperor. So 10 years of rule, but then he says, you know what, you used to be emperor. And this is everyone, okay? And so this is pretty much a decade of France where they're under a direct dictator or authoritarian rule, an emperor. And so how do they usually rule? What happens to the power in authoritarian government? What? Centralizes, right? Okay, so we're going to see centralization of power at this time. We're going to see that he's going to raise an aristocracy for himself, for the French Empire, and it's going to be of wealthy businessmen. He's going to start instituting censorship. Right? Every empire needs censorship. Keep those opposition out of there. And also, the government will sponsor, okay, quote unquote, sponsor certain officials to be candidates in the elections for office. Okay, so is this really an open election? No, right? It's influenced heavily by the government and how they want to control it. Okay, but after this 10 years, 1851 to 1859, we're going to see that he swings the other way. Okay, and he begins to appeal to the masses, and he's now establishing a liberal empire. Okay, and the reforms that we'll get to are going to show that. Okay, so his rule was a model for other political leaders in Europe, demonstrated how a government could actually put together, okay, authoritarian rule with the support of the popular vote. Okay, and it seems kind of contradictory, an oxymoron, like how do you have absolute rule and still get support of everyone? Well, this is an example of it. Okay, and so through kind of this nationalism, this feeling of nationalism is an example of how people are connected. All right, look at this. Box 3, we're flying through this. It's only been 9 minutes. All right, so through economic reforms. Caitlin, you're in the recording now. Now everyone's in the recording now. It is okay. All right, so with economic reforms, it's going to bring a healthy economy for France. Okay, what are they going to focus their money on? Infrastructure, roads, canals, railroads. And what is that major event that's happening around this time of the 1850s and 60s? Oh, you're so smart. You make me so happy. I'm smiling right now.
I think you're just saying this because it's recording.
Wow. So you're saying I'm a liar, Felicia. Hey.
No, because I'm never saying this to us.
I say it all the time, right? You're just saying that because it's recording. All right, so infrastructure.
I'm not even sure if
The roads that you guys walk down to McDonald's, right? In the same way. Who's going to pay for it? You guys. You want nice, non-cracked sidewalks? You got to pay for it. Tax money. Okay? Infrastructure. All right. So, who's his main dude? Okay, Hausmann. It sounds like a very German last name. Von Hausmann, right? So, what city are they focusing on?
Paris.
Yes, Paris. Alec, you just want to be in the recording, don't you? Well, maybe you'll stay awake outside, right? All right. Don't be long, Alec. We'll miss you. Put your tennis tee on, too. Yeah. There you go. There you go. All right. Paris. Okay, so Paris. We're going to see, right, the roads. What's coming to the roads? They're going to widen. Why does it matter to widen?
Better army transportation.
Okay, so we kind of read this in the chapter, right? Yeah? Okay, so you open up the roads, so therefore the military can get in, hoping to stop those stupid things in the middle. What's the stupid things in the middle that they would set up? Barricades, right? Les Mis, okay? So revolutionaries are trying to set up in 1848. Revolutionaries set up in 1830 and 1848. They set up those barricades, right, blocking the military from getting in. It takes a while, but they bring in a cannon and they blow everything up, right? That happens. But yes, now that they're wider, you can't build a barricade, like super long. It takes forever, right? So that's part of it. Also, it'll be more clean, not as cluttered. Housing will be better. Certain regulations being made. Okay. The trade and exports. We're going to see that free trade is going to be opened up, and so the exports are going to double. Okay, it's going to double in a decade, which means that more money is coming in because you're exporting more things. Let's see. That's not that important. Okay, but exports always stimulate the economy. That's the point. Okay, exports, but you have more export, stimulates the economy, which helps them overall grow as a country. Okay, banking. Do you remember during the Industrial Revolution, at the end, we talked about France and the banking system, Credit Mobilier, kind of, okay? So this was basically a banking system where people would put their money in, but that bank would actually use that money and then invest it to fund more industrial growth, one being the railroads of France, okay? So transportation is then going to improve, and then everyone's moving to places to their jobs from home a lot faster as well. Okay, infrastructure. And metallurgical industry, so the metal making, metal manufacturing, okay, all of the coal, silver, all that kind of stuff, iron, steel, okay, all these types of metals are now going to be at the point where they can rival Britain, right? What do we say about Britain and the Industrial Revolution? They were the workshop of the world. They were the number one. They're top dog, right? But if we're saying that they're rivaling them now, they're catching up. Okay, it's catching up. So in the middle of the 1800s, we're going to see France, and then eventually Germany is going to surpass them. We'll get there. All right. So lastly, French investors are going to finance things. Okay, which means that they have the capital now. Remember, that's one of the factors of production that you need for industrializing your country. So, capital financing large infrastructure projects in foreign countries. In Russia, in Spain, and Italy, they need some money to start their own infrastructure projects. Okay, France says, cool, let's do it, right? One of them is the Suez Canal. Where is that? What country is that in? Are you serious? Suez Canal. Connecting the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. What country are we in? We are in Egypt. Africa is a continent. All right. So, Suez Canal will be completed in 1869. And so what happens is these investors, whenever it's an investment, right? I put my money in, right? And then I wait for it. Interest builds, and I get more money back, okay? So what's going to happen is that they can actually grow from their investments, but also these countries are actually going to be going in debt because of their huge investments that they take. Okay? All right, political reforms. Faster. We can do this. Faster. All right. So he's now in this period of being more liberal, right? So the Legislative Assembly, what happens to their power now? It's gonna go up. Don't let me fool you, okay? Yes, the power is going to be extended, okay? And every member of the Legislative Assembly is going to be elected through universal suffrage, right? 97% of the population, okay? Every 6 years is when they kind of have those terms. Before, we said that the government would support certain candidates that would run. Basically, they would rig it. Now, those that are running against the ones that already are in office, they have more equality and fairness of running for elections. Okay. All right. Talked about education. That was given to the church. Now it's going to be taken away. Okay. Secondary education is going to be taken away from the Catholic Church, and the government's going to run it again. And so you have Pope Pius IX that writes a syllabus of errors, and he basically is condemning all of the ideological movements that have been going on, right? And this is written in 1864, but he's been alive to see the revolution of 1830, 1848, and it's kind of like, dude, Europe's falling apart, right? Catholic Church needs to do something about it. Let me write this. So he writes it. Okay, last few things. So, and I'm sorry I didn't have a lot of pictures and stuff. I was doing like 5 things at once. It's okay. We're getting through this, right? All right, so trade unions and credit unions are going to be permitted because that's a very liberal thing, giving them the rights to assemble, the rights to demand things. Otherwise, if you're conservative, who cares about you? Go home. You're fired. All right. So, do we see the change now? Okay, once was everything closed off. Censorship. What's going to happen to censorship?
Decrease.
Okay, it's going to decrease, and there's going to be more amnesty given to political prisoners. Housing is going to get better. Everyone's going to be happy about that. Working class is going to be happy about that. Okay, credit unions, people can now take things out on credit. Last box. Can I get a round of applause, please? Not for me, for Garibaldi. We're getting to Garibaldi soon. I was reading a story, like, man, you're so cool. You're so cool. All right, so foreign policy. This is where, though he is much respected and loved and supported by the people, right? They do criticize him because this is where his weak point is. Okay, so Napoleon III will show that he has some weakness as a ruler, specifically in how he deals with other foreign nations. One was when he actually sent troops, French troops, to Italy. And this was in the time of the revolution of 1848, and Mazzini was there. Pope Pius IX had to leave to escape, right? And the French troops eventually were able to secure Rome again. And a lot of the Republicans, right, those that are favoring a Republican government in France, are saying, like, "What are you doing? Right? You're stopping them. Let them do what they want, right?" But a lot of the conservatives, how do they feel about this? Emily, how would conservatives feel about this if Republicans are like, "Dude, what's your problem? What are you doing? You suck." Are Republicans and conservatives on the same side of the fence?
No.
No, okay? Republicans are very liberal, okay? They're very liberal. Conservatives are obviously conservative, okay? So, Republicans saying, dude, we don't even want having one main guy. Okay, we just want to have a republic established, right? And they just left that. So Republicans are mad about the whole Italy situation. Okay, then the Crimean War comes. We learn about the Crimean War. How does France get involved? Why do they get involved?
Britain, stop Russia.
Britain joined. Dude, Britain joined. I gotta join too.
Yeah. That's what they usually do.
Everyone just follow Britain's lead.
Yeah.
Okay, partially in some ways, but not every way. Okay, so there's this main other person in the party, right? That's Russia, right? And so France is saying, what about Russia?
Contain them.
Yeah, what are you doing? Right? Yeah, get out of our area. All right, so they don't want Russia to expand westward, and so once again, Republicans and liberals, they don't like this. Okay, but does France win in the war? Yeah, they do. They do. But people outside of France recognize this, but people within France, for some reason, just didn't really respect him for it. I don't know. Dude, being a president's a hard job. I would never want to do it. Yeah. Never want to do it. Yeah. Just for being president, you automatically are hated. That doesn't suck. Like, you didn't even do anything yet, and you're already hated. All right, colonialism. Okay, we're getting into the age of imperialism, right? We haven't talked about it yet, but it's in this very moment, right? At this point, what colonies does France have? Anyone know? Throw it out there. Okay, they do have parts of Canada. Yeah. French Indies, kind of. What is that? What is that peninsula called? Indonesia. It's not Indonesia. French Indochina, John. That is correct. French Indochina. Okay, what countries are in French Indochina? Not China.
No, Thailand colonized. Okay, Auntie.
Celine remembers that very, very clearly. It was not colonized, although it is part of the peninsula. That's the only one in Southeast Asia that was not colonized. Vietnam. Good. What else? Cambodia. What else? Laos. Good.
Myanmar.
Burma. Yes. Now called Myanmar. Okay. All right. So, Africa. In Africa, France is going to take a whole large portion of it, more of the western central part. Okay. And Algeria as one of the main colonies in Africa. French Indochina, Southeast Asia, all that place. Okay, and then their foreign policies and their relations with Mexico. Okay, so the whole issue with colonialism is going to be like a whole controversial issue because there are these people called anti-imperialists, and clearly we know how they feel, right? Okay, and this is another thing that's under his belt that it's just part of his reign and rule that people see as like, dude, come on, get out of there. All right, so let's finish the last 2 bullet points. Liberal reforms. The fact is that he would use liberal reforms as a way to kind of divert the attention of him being a weak foreign policymaker in establishing good relationships with other nations. Okay, so unsuccessful in foreign policy. Hey, what do? Give him some candy. There you go. Okay, distract him a little bit. All right, and then we know about the Franco-Prussian War. This would ultimately lead to what happens to Napoleon III. He gets captured. Yes, he does. Okay, and so this is going to be the end of the Second French Empire. Fin.